Hey everyone, you're back with the Lawn Engineer. Today I'm going to do the first service on my Simplicity Regent here. Oil change, check the air filter, and actually the first thing I want to do is get the deck off and look underneath. I cut some very wet grass and testing. I can smell it decomposing under there. You know, when you open the garage door, you get that pungent, rotting grass smell. So I want to see how that is. And just go through the process of removing that deck. I heard it's quite easy. I want to do that. And also I'm going to do a deeper look into that deck and the design of it, and probably do a separate video on some of the things they've done with airflow on there. So let's get to it. Get that deck off first. First thing you have to do to get this deck off is remove the bagger chute here, which actually isn't too bad. Just loosen up this securing nut here. Okay, so the first thing we have to do to get this mower deck off is disconnect the front attachment point here. And this is so easy, I didn't even have to read the instructions. So all you do is put your hand under here, pull this spring-loaded retainer, and pull up and forward, and get that hanger off of these hooks here. So that was pretty darn simple. Next thing, the belt came off. But if it hadn't, we just pop the belt down from the motor pulley there, flops down. And the only thing holding the back on is this little cable here. So we pull out this cotter pin and push that off. Both sides, you can see I already did the other side there. It's hanging off. Then we just have to finagle, slide this out of here. Okay, let's get this thing flipped over and see what it looks like underneath. I thought it was going to be much dirtier under there. You can see we've got pretty good buildup there of rotten, thick grass. But I'll work on cleaning that up. We'll take a look at the blades, maybe sharpen those up, but not much to do here. There are a couple grease zerks for the bearings, so we'll hit those with grease. But so far I'm actually impressed with how clean it stayed, mowing all that wet grass, and then just the overall ease of getting this thing off. That was really a piece of cake. I've done a few of these, and I just continue to be impressed with Simplicity. This is my first Simplicity unit, and I have to tell you, I don't know why they're not more popular. This thing continues to impress me. I'm just going to use a wooden shim to scrape this off. I know that this paint is going to wear off. You can see it's already wearing off. It's not long for this world, but I still don't like using something metal and scraping it all off. So I'm going to use this wood and get this grass freed up.
By the way,
to trust my watch. I don't think it's 68 degrees out. I think it's more like in the 40s or 50s. Not going to get too nitpicky with it because the moment we start using this to cut, we're going to get this again. But I'm really glad how clean this stayed. That really wasn't too bad. For the conditions I put it through, I'm happy with that. One other thing I want to point out here is just how Simplicity keeps impressing me with their engineering and design here. This is a foot designed to support this so you're not sitting on their height of cut adjustment linkage and motor when you flip the deck over exactly like this. That is just very impressive to me. I have not seen that on any of the other mowers I've ever had, John Deere or anyone. Just attention to detail, and they have not been cost cut to death yet. Hopefully this continues. I'm just very impressed. All right, let's take these blades off. This one I just put on with the bagger kit, so maybe I have, 4 hours of cut time. Of course, I'm very careful with my mower, and my grass is pretty well kept, but that leading edge held up incredibly well. There's not even a nick in it. It's a little rounded over. I might touch that off to get it a little bit sharper, but I know there's a fine line on there. If we sharpen that too much, it becomes very delicate and it won't hold that edge. So that could use a little bit of improvement. That's just the stock grind on it, but not even a single nick in there. Same situation here with the smaller blade. Basically factory grind on there, not a defect on it. We've got a grease cert, which is a little bit different than most of them that I've seen. Most units that I've run have the grease cert on the top, on the basically at the center of the shaft above the pulley, and you grease from above. But here we've got the grease cert right on the spindle on the underside of the deck, so we're going to grease that while we have it off. This is a different setup that I'm used to also. You can see, I believe you can just buy replacement bearings. Take this apart, flop 2 bearings in that are relatively inexpensive and keep going. Also, I do like this grease location because I believe a bearing is above and below and you're injecting grease between them and making that go through both bearings at the same time. This is probably the more correct place to put the grease in, but maybe a little bit less convenient. But as I said, I've been impressed with how this deck came off and apart, and even they've got the stand up here to put it on its top, so they've thought this through. The grease gun here. I've decided these blades are in such good shape, I'm not even going to mess with sharpening them. I'm going to put them right back on. They're just, I don't see how I could improve on what condition they're in. that's all there is to it. Now we can slide it back under the mower. But before we do that, I'm gonna drain the oil because I think it's gonna be easier to get my drain pan or bucket under the drain without the discharge chute in the way. All right, we're gonna move on to our oil change now. I've got the Briggs & Stratton oil filter. I know you can cross-reference these and buy cheaper ones, different brands. I was in the lawn and garden section, I saw this, I think it was $9. I didn't have to think about if it was gonna fit or not, so I just grabbed it. That's the one thing that's good about having the Briggs & Stratton engine. No matter what store you go to, they're likely gonna have an oil filter for it. So, and then I'm gonna use a synthetic 10W30. There's actually quite a few different oil options in the manual. Synthetic oil, I use it in everything. I'm a believer, so that's what's going in there today. I've got my drain oil bucket here, which fits really nicely in the space between the front tire and the footrest here with the deck off, so that's why I left it off to do this. We've got our very convenient drain plug here, so all I have to do, open up our bucket here, twist off the cap, slide it down in there, and let it drain out. Pretty simple. While the oil's draining there, we'll take a look at the air filter. All we have to do is loosen up these two thumb screws, take this cover off, and lift out our air filter. Just pops into place there, so that's quite easy. Pretty clean in there. There is some pollen and that on there, so I'm gonna get the air compressor and blow that off. Ooh, looks fine under there. All right, so I just blew this off with the air compressor. This green part's a pre-filter. The real filter's underneath here is the white part. That's extremely clean. There was nothing there. It basically just blew off the pre-filter. It's in good shape. So all we gotta do is pop this back in place. While we've got the oil draining on the other side, I'm gonna take the oil filter off here and replace that. Shouldn't be on so freaking tight. Come on, people. I guess I should have used my oil filter wrench right away, but I didn't think it was gonna be that crazy tight. Jeez. Whew. I honestly don't think I've experienced an oil filter this tight in a long time. Jeez. There's a little bit more oil in there than I was expecting. I don't know why it was on there so tight, but you can see, man, I really had to reef on that thing to get that off. Wow. It says right on this package, hand tighten only. Somebody didn't listen to that. But anyway, we will. Take our filter here, get a little bit of oil, put it on here. I think that's maybe what happened is this seal dried out on there. I don't know how long this thing's been sitting, but that sure was a bear to get off there. So put a little oil on there and gooper. There we go. I just dipped my finger in some new oil there and got it on the seal. just snug that up with half a turn by hand. Should come off a lot easier than next time. All right, well, the only side benefit of all that oil coming out there, and wipe it up with a rag, it sure gets it nice and clean. Prevents some rust too, I guess. All right, we got that out. We'll check on our draining, and we'll get this thing filled up with oil, and that'll be it for the engine service. Actually, this thing's so convenient here, we don't need a funnel. We'll just dump it in here. There we go. We're just between the two dots there. So let's fire this thing up. I will let that oil settle for a minute and recheck it. But otherwise, I think we're pretty much good to go here. I use some more WD-40 to clean off the dash while we wait. Clean, 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 cleany, clean, clean. Let's see where we're at here. Just as I thought, that made us a little bit low because we got some of that oil into the filter there. All right, there we go. We're actually perfect right up to the second dot there. So we are done. Took just about exactly 2 quarts. Okay, to finish up our first service here on the Regent, we just got to get the mower deck back on. All right, now we got to put our cable back on here. Put our washer, then our pin. Pretty easy. Okay, there is one thing I messed up on taking this mower deck off for the first time. And that's on this, I forgot to disconnect this wire. You can see here what I should have done is pinch those things together and take this off to disconnect the wire. What actually happened, unfortunately, I pulled these connections right out of this connector here. So we'll see if I can put those back in there. The first thing I want to do is make sure I match up the right wires. But let's see if I can get these back in there. All right, I got this connector fixed. The bad news is I had to pull the deck out a little bit to do it. So don't forget to disconnect that. Thankfully, I was able to get that fixed and I didn't break it, but don't be like me. Remember to disconnect this electrical connection for the height of cut adjustment before you pull that deck out of there. All right, I'm all done with my service here. Changed the oil, cleaned the air filter, took the deck off, cleaned that out, looked at it. Everything was in great shape there. Greased the spindle bearings. And we're good to go. So the only hiccup I had was I forgot to disconnect that electrical connection for the height of cut motor, but I was able to get that fixed. And I continue to be impressed with simplicity. Like the name suggests, you know, that deck came off really easily. If it weren't for my mistake, things would have gone together really quick. So I give that 2 thumbs up. I continue to be impressed by them, and if you're on the fence, buy it. You won't regret having this lawnmower in your garage. Till next time, adios.